So,
On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, spring break with Shawn and George. So, welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. For those of you that are listening, I am not in my office comfortably recording. I am actually standing outside in beautiful Tallahassee, Florida, in I think probably about 50 degrees, um, with my work area here covered in pollen. So we'll see if I survive to the end of the episode. But I am joined again on this week's episode, remote, by your co-host, your financial coach, George Corbello. How you doing, George?
how are you? So, I am not in Tallahassee. I wish, but here it's still in. I'm in nice St. Pete, Palmetto area, beautiful Tampa area itself. I did wake up. It was a little chilly, chilly again for Florida, but looking forward to some of the nice weather that's coming around our way itself. So I'm doing well though. Spring break is here, and I still feel like I'm still working hard. So I'm not sure where the time off is. I wish I was young again.
Yeah, so I the reason I'm in Tallahassee, Florida, this is actually my second stop on my spring break. I took my boys out of Tampa. We left Tampa to head out to spring break. We have a friend of ours, Rich Fika, has been on the show before with Florida Coastal Insurance. He's got a cabin up in Jasper, Georgia. And so me and the boys met him and his wife and son up in Jasper and spent a couple of days at their cabin. And then yesterday drove into Tallahassee. My family's here in Tallahassee, so we're going to hang here in Tallahassee. And then we'll be home probably the day this episode comes out.
Nice.
We will be driving home. So I didn't realize how close Jasper is to Tennessee, to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I've been calling this the three state spring break, the Yesner boys three-state spring break, because we're spending it in Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee.
Nice. And
Three
how
states in
and the
one
boys
week.
are enjoying that time off? Is that and they're enjoying the country or what's out there in the open land?
So the boys are enjoying it, yes. I don't know that they're necessarily enjoying the country because every time we're driving and I say, "Hey boys, look at that view," I look in the back seat and they're either sleeping or buried in their iPads or iPhones, I guess, as today's generation will do. So, um, they have enjoyed some of the views. I mean, we went when we went to Tennessee,
Hmm.
we went to a place called Ruby Falls, which is a cavern inside of a mountain out there in Chattanooga, and there's this huge waterfall inside the mountain. It's really cool. It's really cool to go there and see all that stuff. So yeah, we've been doing the tourist thing. Um, my wallet is burning a hole in my pocket right now, so we're
Any
gonna see what
regrets, or
my
are you just it's just a lot of spending at this point?
at this point just a lot of spending. But I was trying to think, is that something we could talk about here on the show? And I know I've done a couple of shows already on vacation spending. The problem with this vacation, so we like to, when we go out of town, we like to eat at places we've never eaten before.
Of course.
And the challenge there is you don't necessarily know what kind of prices you're going to get when you eat at places you've never eaten before. So, one night last night we got kind of lucky because it was kids eat half off because it was a Monday night. So that was good. My pocketbook liked that. But then there's other places that you get there and you sit down and a kid's meal is $15 and an adult meal is $20, and now you're at $50 for three people just on food. And so
Yeah.
we have had a couple of times where we've eaten, at wherever it is we're staying, where we've made a meal. Um, I brought a whole box of snacks so we can eat snacks in the car. We don't have to stop and constantly buy snacks and drinks and all that kind of stuff. So I've been able to shave a couple of bucks here and there, but mostly I said to myself, we're going on vacation. Let's go on vacation. I've got the budget to do it. To the extent I might go over budget a little, I got some money in savings.
Sure.
So let's just go out and have some fun.
Great idea. And again, a lot of times when we have those vacations, here's the thing: it's you're not in that crisis mode. You're not, you're not kind of you've done this smart where you've planned, you've have a budget, you're going out and enjoying. It's part of that experience as well is like, like you can go and enjoy that time without having to worry about the consequences or the guilt really that's tied to. We talked about money stresses in the previous episode.
Right.
We want to eliminate that as part of vacation. Why go on vacation if all you're going to do is worry and be stressed out about what you're doing, what you're spending on? That's kind of defeats the purpose of having the vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have done a pretty good job. I mean, with everything else going on personally in my life, to be able to get away from Tampa for about a week. We left on Friday and we'll be driving home on Thursday. So, mentally too, I think this was I've given myself permission that yeah, I'm going to spend some money, but it's worth it for the mental break. It's worth it for the vacation.
That's the idea itself. Do you need a vacation from the vacation once you're done, or is it going to be, or is it kind of like it's been pretty solid, smooth for you?
Well, I do have my computer with me, obviously, because we need to bang out a couple of episodes here. So I do have my computer with me. I was actually pretty good on the first leg of the trip when we were in Georgia. I didn't really touch my computer at all. I saw emails come in on my phone, and the ones that I could knock out, I knocked out. The ones that were spammy or the ones that were easy to forward to somebody, I could knock out. And then last night I kind of spent about an hour. Probably today I'll probably spend an hour or two just knocking out emails. But yeah, I've been able to get away. I've been able to turn off the technology, so to speak.
Nice, and that's a lot of times. A lot of us, when we talk about vacation, we tend to not be able to disconnect from work, from any our business, and I think it's important to be able to make that disconnect. So it allows you to kind of recharge
Yeah.
and get ready for it when you get back. I'd imagine though your mailbox is getting a little bit heavy on the side that side itself because you're an important lawyer guy.
Yeah, important lawyer guy. I like to I like to have my inbox um either in the teens or lower. I'm not the kind that lets emails accumulate. I read them, I work on them, and then I either delete them or I move them into the client's folder. So I like to have in my main inbox somewhere in the teens. If I'm somewhere in the teens in terms of pending emails, I'm comfortable. Right now, I think when we started recording, I had 74.
Okay, so
So
you're not used to that.
I'm not used to that, but I'll, last night when I fired up the computer, I was at like 136. So to get from there to 70, I feel okay. I feel okay. I got hearings covered. I got a hearing on Wednesday that I've got some coverage for. The office is taking care of things, while I'm gone. So I'm doing okay. I actually did have right before we started recording, I had a call with a good friend of mine who just lost his dad, and so you and I had talked to Mike Banner a bunch of episodes ago about reverse mortgages, and so
Right.
he was asking me questions about reverse mortgages, and so I've had to answer some of those questions. Um, so yeah, just basically been working.
Credit score, not credit score. The reverse mortgages can always be going to be an interesting topic. Obviously, it's good when we hear the episode and all the information that's in front of you. But when you're in that mode, when you're in that moment, I can imagine, there's millions and millions of questions that kind of come up in regards to like, how does this apply to me, or to the family, that's remaining as well. So that's kind of the craziness as part of that. Okay.
Yeah, and to his credit, he had already called the reverse mortgage company, but he didn't know what to do from here. And he's got two other siblings. So there's three of them. One of the siblings lives in the house. So now he's saying, well, what do I do? Because one of them is going to want to stay in the house,
Right.
but how do we do that? So, one of the things we didn't talk about a lot, I don't think, with Mike was that when somebody is living in a house with a reverse mortgage and they pass away, there still needs to be that estate planning piece of it because yeah, you can pay off a reverse mortgage, you can refinance a reverse mortgage, you can sell the house. But before you do any of that, the title has to be in the name of the heirs. So there's that other piece of now my buddy might have to do a probate to get the house into his and his siblings' names. Then once they do that, they can try to refinance it or they can sell it and just pull the cash out of it. So I think that was the step that we were so focused on, which I think Mike is a tremendous resource, and I'm super happy with those episodes. But one of the things that we probably could have talked more about was the aspect of the estate planning piece of it, using the reverse mortgage in conjunction with estate planning.
How does that tie back
Yeah,
to that as well? And is it, do you think it was better planning that would be needed, or again, if you're Monday morning quarterback, right? What do we like if we
yeah,
had the information, would we do things differently? Is that what we're thinking when it comes to some of these situations in estate planning?
not better planning, just planning in general. Just because I said to him, well, whose name was on the title to the house? And he said, well, my mom and dad. Well, his mom passed like 3 years ago. And so when his mom passed, title automatically transferred to dad. So dad now owns the property 100%
Yep.
instead of owning it 50-50 with mom. But then what they didn't do, which a lot of people, I'm not blaming him for it. A lot of people don't know this or think about this. What he didn't do was say, okay, now that mom is gone and it's just dad, what happens when something happens to dad? Where does the house go? They didn't do that piece of it. I mean, even when my wife passed, I've already called my financial advisor to say, she was my beneficiary. So if something had happened to me first, she would have gotten everything.
Right.
So now I have to update everything to say, well, now that she's gone, if something happens to me, here's where I want all my stuff to go to take care of my kids. So there's just, a lot of people do a really good job of thinking of that first piece. We're a couple and we need to do something if one of us passes.
Right.
They don't think about the second piece, which is, well, what happens to what
To
happens
the
when you
survivors.
have the survivor
Sure.
and something happens to the survivor. And it's not, my friend didn't do anything wrong. His dad didn't do anything wrong.
No, right.
These are not topics that people like to think about on a regular basis. It's just my morbid brain that thinks about, now that I'm here by myself, what do I do with my kids?
Right. And that's the thing. I think all of us, we don't want to, we always say too, it's kind of like, well, if I say it, it's going to happen. If it's going to be in the universe, it's going to, I mean, for all of us, it's something's going to happen. It's inevitable from it's just more of when. But
Right,
having that conversation, it goes back to, good communication, really having that with family, having that with our spouses. It's really more of the what if scenario, and then making sure it's written somewhere. Make sure the plan is somewhere so that everyone's aware.
right,
The biggest thing that it's the doomsday book, right? The biggest thing that worries me is, let's assume if I pass away and my wife, like, just something as simple as, how do I get into accounts, passwords? If
right,
I don't have that information available for her, she's going to have such a tough time being able to access basic information, just because, again, the account information is either, like my passwords, or just not available to her right away. So those are the little things where it's like, just the small details just allow you to be able to kind of, again, just in case you don't have somebody having to worry
right.
about, like, how am I going to do this or pay this or do that. It's they can actually go through the grieving process and do what they need to do from that standpoint.
And my wife was terrible with passwords. She would forget her password, so she would reset it. She'd write down the new password, but then forget where she wrote it
Where she
down.
wrote it.
So she'd have to reset it again. And then she would. So actually, I still have, and I was actually talking. I have a buddy of mine up here in Tallahassee that is a Verizon phone salesman, which is where we have our phones with Verizon. And I was talking to him last night about what do we do with my wife's phone, and I don't necessarily want to deactivate it because it's got a lot of her friends' phone numbers in it, and so I can keep in touch with a lot of them with what's going on in terms of how are the boys doing? We still have to plan a celebration of life for my wife. So,
Okay.
making those kinds of plans. But the other reason that I don't want to get rid of her phone right now is I ended up putting, where you have the face unlock on an iPhone.
Oh,
I
okay.
was able to get I was able to get her phone to recognize my face. So, I mean, I know her code if I have to put in the code, but now I can just hold up the phone to my face and it unlocks, and that gives me access to all the passwords that were saved on her phone. So if I need to get into anything, I've got all of her passwords. So I was able to figure that out.
That little things like
So
that, guys. It's one of those we don't want to think about those situations, but it is something that we need to really be in front of when it comes to those kind of again, I wouldn't want to be worried or have my wife worry about those kind of things itself. It's just but those are the little things that will kind of creep up pretty quick. So having a plan, putting an estate plan, we always think of the big stuff, right? But it's the little things that need to be included in a lot of that planning that needs to be also taken care of as well. And again, let alone
yeah.
it's easy for us because we're the old men in the podcast, right? But you got young folks who are like, "Oh, I'm going to live forever." What are you talking about? I don't have to worry about that now. But I think for me, and again, maybe you can like, when is the best time to think about those kind of things itself? For me, it's always been like once I got married and started having kids, that was for me the change in life that said, okay, I need to have certain things that those types of things brings. That's the time that I thought was the right time to do those things. I don't know if thinking there's anything different from that for young folks.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you. I mean, the first time I started thinking about it was as I became eligible for different types of life insurance. Like when I passed the Florida bar has a life insurance program. And I remember my dad saying to me, buy it when you can, because as you get older, different things happen that may disqualify you for life insurance or disqualify you for a certain level of life insurance, or it'll make the life insurance more expensive or whatever. So I bought the maximum amount of life insurance. It was only like 100,000, 150,000,
Sure.
whatever. And my parents and my sister were all joint beneficiaries because those were the only people I had to worry about. But then you're right. When I got married, then I had to switch to make my wife the beneficiary, and then when we started having kids, that's when we really got into the estate planning. One of the interesting things you mentioned, people don't want to do estate planning because they don't want to think about it. They don't want something
Wish it into the
bad to happen.
universe.
Right.
That's always yeah.
So I will tell you this, and I don't know if this bolsters your point or if this burns a hole in your point, but my wife's cancer diagnosis was a month or two after we signed our estate planning documents.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that was putting it out into the universe or not.
Well, we always kind of, we always look at it differently when it comes to those things. But but again, aren't you glad those conversations were had? It's not that you. Let me tell you, if you have that kind of power itself, can you just wish it into the universe? Then, like, hey, lottery winnings, Shawn and George are winning the
There you go.
lotto and stuff like that. Could we do that kind of power, man? That's where I want you to use your greatness.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Lottery winnings, vacations, cabins, buying
Time
cabins
off.
up in Georgia. That's where I'm gonna put it out into the universe.
Use that power more, man. That's where I'm saying use it for that kind of outcome itself. I appreciate that, but yeah, man. I mean, so have you again talking about previous episodes and stuff like that? Have you seen any surge pricing along your way when it comes to eating out and stuff like that, or is it just everything seems high right now?
Everything seems high right now. I have not noticed. I think a lot of the companies have kind of backed off surge pricing a little bit.
Yeah, they have.
Um, I haven't seen it anywhere. Um, so we'll see. But I have noticed I've got a lot of receipts building up in my wallet. I have unfortunately been burying my head in the sand. I haven't looked at my bank balance since we started, and mostly So I did have the kids bring their green light cards with them,
Okay.
and if they want a souvenir, they can buy the souvenir. So really, the only thing that I've paid for is food and gas. I haven't really bought them uh any. Now, sorry, so I did. We did stop at a Bucky's. Someone told me you had to
Oh, you
stop at
gotta stop at a
Bucky's.
Bucky's. Yeah,
So
dude.
we stopped at Bucky's, and I got my younger son a Bucky's plush doll,
Hmm.
and then my older son, I think, forgot his green light card when we went to Ruby Falls. So I bought him a piece of one of those souvenir uh, like rocks that are smooth and shiny, and whatever. I don't think it's quartz, but some kind of rock that
Okay.
you know probably cost like 2 cents to
They picked it up
create.
from
That
the
they
outside and brought it in. Is that what?
Yeah, probably. So I did buy them a small souvenir. I got myself a T-shirt at one of the places we went, but mostly my budget's been food and gas in the car. So, but they have brought their green light cards, and so I have said to them, if they say, "Ooh, you want to get this, that, the other thing," what do you got on your green light card?
Yeah.
Can you afford to do it? So I am working on
Lessons
that
never
with them.
stop, even on vacation,
There you
especially for the
go.
kids as well. You have to always still follow through with the lessons that you're trying to build, and that's probably the best time because again, we go into impulse mode. We're on vacation when it comes to like, oh, we'll just eat or we'll just buy this. Hey, we're at Bucky's for the first, like we have to buy something. I'm like, okay, but it's not like the endless supply. It's more of like, okay, let's stay within budget. What can you afford? So the lessons still hold true. So good
Right.
job there, Shawn. Keep
Yeah.
keep keep
Thank you.
up keep up doing the financial lessons even on vacation when you're not following them. So just
There you
sorry.
go. So, and the other good thing that happened, although now that I'm back in Florida, we'll see. But driving to Georgia, my red car had kind of a greenish tinge to it from all the pollen. But that first night driving into Georgia, it was raining, so that washed all the pollen off my car. There was no pollen in Georgia,
Wow.
but now that we're back in Tallahassee, everything's covered in
You see
pollen
the
again.
green covering,
Everything, yeah, my red car is
yellow and
turning
green.
green
That's
again from all the. I didn't know that red car and yellow pollen would look green. I was always taught that red and yellow make orange, but apparently it turns your car green.
nice. Look at you learning the lessons in the so okay. All right, keep it up there, buddy. So some of the other things that, again, I know you've been on the road, but some of the things that I've seen, like article wise and stuff, apparently are the nation's average credit score has gone down for the first time in a long time. It's been kind of gradually going up. I'm thinking COVID had to do something on that, but is this a result of inflation? Is everything going to fall apart now? What Shawn? What should I be reading when it comes to
Well,
this FICO score going down?
the bankruptcy attorney in me hopes so, but it was
Business
actually
will be good.
it was kind of funny. A few weeks ago, I was at my kids' Sunday school, and I overheard two people talking, and they were both saying, "Yeah, we don't get it. The economy's doing great. It's never been better. Blah 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 blah." And I thought to myself, "Have you guys gone out and tried to buy a gallon of milk, a dozen eggs,
Right.
gas, anything?"
The
And and
essentials.
and as I continued to listen to them, one had sold his business for a couple $1 million.
Okay.
The other was some, you know, $1,000 an hour corporate mergers and acquisitions attorney, whatever. And I kind of thought to myself, yeah, that totally makes sense. That people with that much money may not be dialed into the day to day kinds of expenses.
Correct.
I mean, I went to Publix the week before we left. I went to Publix, and I didn't even need a week's worth of groceries. I only needed 4 days worth of groceries because we left on Friday. So I needed four school lunches, and that was about it. And just kind of the basics to get us through the week. Through buy one get ones and digital coupons, I saved $40. but my bill was still 160
Wow.
for a week's worth of groceries.
Yeah. Now people are you can tell people are still struggling with the day to day the money that trying to stretch the dollar and
Yeah.
what they're trying to do each week each month and again I'm a social media guy so I'm seeing all the things people are surprised when it comes to like wow this is the first time I had to pay taxes so taxes is rearing its ugly head lately
Right.
going to the grocery store itself, just getting the essentials. And of course, we've got to stay healthy. We've got to stay this. We got to do all these kind of things. And yet, again, stretching the dollar. People are just frustrated. We already talked about housing market, again, and just all of those prices, renting versus buying, how much you
Well,
need and things like
the
that. So,
housing market, at least in Tampa, is cooling off a little bit.
mm,
Houses that used to sell within a week or two are now taking 45 to 60 days to get
right.
contracts. Housing prices, I don't think housing prices are dropping, but I
No.
think they've kind of leveled off a little bit.
Well, and the interest rates are haven't been dropping either. I think
Yeah,
that
interest rates are not helping.
they're still pretty high for again what we were used to the last 4 years, but
That's the important thing. They're pretty high compared to what we were used to
correct.
because they're still currently what in the sevens or eights, which
Correct.
historically is kind of low.
No,
But
no. Overall, that's still pretty good deal than
right,
what you normally. But again, when you were accustomed to people getting as low as 2%
right,
interest rates, man, there's and what's going to end up happening in those cases if you're in locked into one of those lower interest loans, do you sell the house? Do you refinance? Do you do like you don't do any of those kind of things because going out and getting another place obviously the housing prices are higher, but the interest is higher in regards to this. So unless you're paying cash, it is very hard for regular. Again, you're right. I'm not saying people who are making thousand an
right.
hour are not feeling it, but regular folks itself, especially a lot of the young kids coming out of college, that seems to be the biggest complaint is, like how am I supposed to get the American dream going when the ticket for entry seems a lot higher
Exactly.
in regards to that.
I used to talk to my wife about that all the time. I mean, our we bought our house in 2011 when my son was born, or before my son was born. We had moved into that house, and since we bought it, it's doubled in value.
Right.
And so, my wife and I used to talk all the time. We could sell it and we have double the cash from when we bought it, but houses that size are now that price. So it's not like we can sell our house and upgrade unless we want to incur more debt in buying a bigger house. We still need, we can't go from the house went up to what 400, 500. Well, if you sell it, the only thing that size is 400 or 500.
Or
So all
more
you're
or
doing is
more.
moving
Correct.
houses. You can't
Right.
really upgrade. I think what that might cause, what I might do is do upgrades to the house.
Right.
So I like my interest rate. I kind of like my house. I don't want to sell it. I don't know where I'm going to go if I do sell it. So let me just make changes to it. Let me upgrade
Renovate.
this. Let me change that. Let me get rid of this. Let me add that.
Use the equity itself in the home to put back into the home because a lot of times we think about like the equity we use it to get the next place or the next
Right.
house itself and a lot of us it's not that we're settling or staying in the place that we're at but if we like where we live neighborhood wise the type of house then yeah you're right maybe 10 years no offense anything that's 10 years ago you got to renovate you got to give it
Right.
enough it's not just a paint job anymore there's
Right.
something else that needs to be done but
But
again using that equity that you have to reinvest back in the home that's just going to give your value of the home obviously a boost but at the end of the day for me it's like dude if you like where you live why not renovate so that
yeah.
you can continue to enjoy where you live.
By the way, have you seen on social media? I forget exactly what they're called, but it's these people on social media saying, "Don't refinance your house. Don't take out a home equity line of credit,
Yep.
but do something called I think it's called like an equity conversion."
Mm-hmm.
But from what I'm understanding, basically what it is somebody gives you some money based on the equity in your home. That money is not due back unless you sell it or refinance it. So you're not making payments on it. But when you sell or refinance your house, that's when you owe the money back. Um, I haven't done a lot of research into it yet, but I would
You
kind
have
of
to.
think I would kind of think it's very similar to a reverse mortgage, but for
Right,
somebody who's not 62, somebody who's younger than that,
right.
because you got to assume that money incurs interest and negatively amortizes. That's the only way these people would make money
Make
off of
money
it.
somewhere, right?
So I don't
We'll
know if
have to
you've
look into it then, my friend. We'll have
maybe
to
we'll look into it for the
write
next
it down
episode.
and we'll look into it for a future episode. Look at you
Yeah,
teasing already. I love it.
I know
He's on
already. So,
vacation, but he's always working. I like it.
but in the meantime, I think I need to get out of all of this pollen and warm up a little bit and get started with our day.
Yes.
So I'll mention our sponsor, Sam Cohen, owners of Attorneys First Insurance. I'm actually, well, you can't see it right now because I'm wearing a sweatshirt, but the shirt I'm wearing underneath this is a T-shirt I got from Sam for promoting his company. So Sam
Nice.
writes errors and omissions insurance for attorneys and title companies all over the country. So if you are an attorney or title company and you need to make sure you're protected from a oopsie, give Sam a buzz, sam at attorneysfirst.com. Also want to mention, I do have to pay for this vacation. So if you want to go to Patreon/crushing debt and help me pay for my vacation, no, I am kidding. Any of the money we get from Patreon goes right back into the podcast to help make
Sean's
the
still on
podcast
vacation,
better.
guys.
Nah, I'm still does not go to my vacation. Might go to George's, but doesn't go to my vacation. Um, the other thing, by the way, so I was looking at my numbers the other day. We've got the Purple Stride, the
Right.
pancreatic cancer walk coming up in a little over a month and a half away now. My personal goal was to raise $5,000 towards pancreatic cancer research. My team goal is 10 grand. So far, I am up to about $4,600
Nice.
that I've raised. The team is at about $6,700.
Nice. Good job.
So, so yeah, we're raising money for
Keep
pancreatic
pushing.
cancer research, prevention, cure. So we're doing that. But you can go to. I'll have the link. It's
Yeah.
My Legacy Striders. I did finally decide on the logo, so we're gonna start pumping out some shirts here soon.
Perfect.
Um, and yeah, anything else we want to talk about today, George? Or are we gonna
No,
leave this hodgepodge episode as
this
is?
is a hodgepodge of trying to catch up and enjoy the spring break. So this is not too bad. We'll come back and we'll be a little bit more. We got some teasers. I know we had talked about some future episodes and maybe some participation, listener participation. So we'll kind of tease that and say we'll talk about that in the next episode and go from there.
Absolutely. Well, that'll wrap up this week's episode. And like we say at the end of every episode, we hope you have more money at the end of the month rather than month at the end of the money. We'll see how my budget shakes out after the spring break vacation. I might be the latter and not the former. But that'll do it for this week's episode, and we will talk to you in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.